Hello, everyone, and welcome to TBG, or Talkin Bout Games. It's a little bonus podcast we do occasionally whenever something in the gaming industry is tickling our fancy, or we just don't have anything to talk about on our other podcast for the week. But this week, there's plenty to talk about, some of it even relevant to this week's podcast, as we had the PlayStation 5 Showcase and our next look into the Final Fantasy franchise. And yes, for anyone who is watching, that intro scene is on purpose, because we do it so infrequently, we don't actually have an intro scene for this show. If someone would like to make one, I would more than welcome it. So, on that note, I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Happy. Joining me is, of course, Sly, who is a little upset. There's a few things we're not talking too much about on this show based on the way the pre-show went. You can talk about a few extra things there, Sly, if you really want to. How you feeling?
I'm all right. I'm here.
That is not encouraging, unfortunately. I'm here. There you go. And our third host for the show, who is an official co-host for this show. It goes back and forth on State of the Realm, but he's been on every TBG so far, and that of Ethys, who refused to miss this show big time.
I am also here. Hello. Welcome, everyone.
Hello.
I like your hair.
Sly still... Thank you. I just got out of the shower. Sly is still upset that we didn't let him sing us in. He was saying in the pre-show he really, really wanted to sing some Backstreet Boys for us. And Mike and I, we had to put our foot down and say, no. This is professional. All right. We're trying to attract some fresh sponsorships here. We cannot have you singing Backstreet Boys.
Yeah,
we
dude, it's
cannot
going to
have
get copyright stricken.
Yeah, because he's pitch perfect. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All five of
so
them.
If you want to hear
that would be a little bit more believable if it was like something like the Temptations or something, some Motown. Nah, Backstreet Boys. Yeah.
Listen, all I'm saying is that if you want to hear Sly sing some Backstreet Boys, you have to go into his stream, and he will be more than happy to oblige. He'll pretend not to. It's one of those things where like he doesn't want to do it, but he really does, and you just have to like push him, really, really push him for it, and then you'll get it.
I can't wait to see that sub goal.
That's never gonna.
The karaoke, the Sly karaoke sub goal.
Oh God, no.
It doesn't even have to be Backstreet Boys at this point, just the Sly karaoke. There you go. I'll join you for it if you do it. We'll do it together, Sly.
Hell yeah.
More than one person in the Backstreet Boys anyway. All right, gentlemen. When we do a TBG, it's normally either A, the pilot where we were figuring out what the hell we were doing, or B, there's some stuff we really want to talk about, or C, there's no State of the Realm that week. Either or. All of the above can sometimes apply. And this week, we have something.
We actually had a State of the Realm.
Yeah, this is the only time we've ever done one of these and a State of the Realm in the same week. But we've only done 3 of these, so the sample size is quite low. There's
so ambitious.
I know, right? It's only the overlay, but with all the 14 related stuff taken out and just in the void. So become very, very ambitious, obviously. There's a lot to talk about from this week. Now, we're going to be focusing primarily on the PlayStation 5 Showcase and the title that I think that I would assume the 3 of us are most excited about for years from now, but not necessarily in the immediate vicinity. But I would like to kind of go over some of the things that have happened this week, starting with the PlayStation 5 Showcase, which is probably the biggest bit of news that came out of this week. So, while it's not the most primary topic we're going to talk about, how did you guys feel about this? Because I feel like everyone wants to draw comparisons between a Sony Showcase and an Xbox Showcase and Nintendo Direct, and it's always back and forth about which one impressed them the most. So, where do we stand on the most recent PlayStation Showcase and our opinions on the upcoming PlayStation 5?
Sly?
It did the job. It did what it was supposed to do, draw more hype for a console release, and bring in console sales. The majority of us were just there for the price. We wanted a price, we wanted a release date. We got that too. But we got more than we bargained for, more than we expected. And I think that goes to show that Sony was really had something to prove.
Up against who, I don't know, but yeah, I agree.
It's kind of inexplicable for me. I can't really put my finger on why precisely, but I haven't been so excited for a console release since like Nintendo 64, I think. Like honestly, ever since then, like they've all just kind of sailed over my head. I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, it's fine. It's, the next gen. But I think between obviously the Final Fantasy 16 trailer, coming off the high of that, the Demon Souls remaster, and just the backwards compatibility and having this like huge list of games shipped with the PlayStation Plus, like all of like the best games from the previous generation, is just like, oh, I don't know, I can't explain it, but I'm so excited. I'm so pumped for it, and I normally don't like buy into a new console until like a year or two after they've launched.
I normally buy in right away, but for no particular reason. Like I grab it because I'm like, you know what? I know. Like there's gonna be something. Like if I'm grabbing like a Switch or a PlayStation, it's because I know at some point I will use it. So I'll be the sucker who buys the day one and then has to buy the Pro version 2 years later. I'll be that guy. And I suspect it'll happen here too. Everyone's like, no, there won't be a PS5 Pro. I'm like, of course there's gonna be a PS5 Pro at some point. Come on now. Come on.
Yeah, of course.
Come on. It's gonna happen. Let's be real. I'll be the sucker in this case. But I agree with you in that. Oh, sorry, Sly.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I agree in you in that it's been a while since I've been excited because the PlayStation 4 I got the one with Destiny. I was kind of excited for that, but like I really didn't know how I was gonna feel about it, and it didn't kind of pan out. So yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I haven't really been, oh my god, I can't wait for a pretty long time.
Were you sold on the PS5 beforehand, or did this event do it for you?
This event did it for me because like I already. So here's the thing. Before I already knew there were things I 100% wanted on the PlayStation 5, which was good. Again, PlayStation 4 I didn't have that sensation for the PlayStation 4. I didn't even have it for the Switch. And I had Breath of the Wild the day it came out. I ended up kind of just not being like that ended up being like the console seller for me. It just was the first game I picked up. And I think back, and realistically, the only other time I've ever really had this was seeing Final Fantasy X on the PlayStation 2. Because I remember my cousin got it before I did, and he had the demo, which just lets you play through the opening. So you see the blitzball scene and the city being attacked, and that made me go home and be like, "This Christmas, that's it. Don't buy me socks. I don't need a stocking. I don't care. Just I'll grow out of all my clothes, whatever. It doesn't. Just I need that. All right, I need that in my life. That's how I feel about the 5. Pretty much day one. I want it day one after this most recent event. I wanted it before. Now I want it November 12th here in the States.
Yeah, this event was definitely the seller for me as well. Like I remember Final Fantasy 15. I didn't even bother buying it on the PS4. I was like, I'll just wait till it comes out on PC, and that's why I did. I played the Royal Edition, and I knew that Final Fantasy 16 was probably going to be the seller for me, but I was also prepared to wait until Final Fantasy 16 came out. I don't know, like, if we're being optimistic, end of next year. But
that's very optimistic in my opinion, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah. But now I'm like, man, I just want to get my hands on this like ASAP and just throw my PS4 in the garbage.
I'm not ready to do that, but
no, I'm not gonna throw my PS4 in the garbage. I'm sorry.
I think I was actually sold.
Were you sold? What sold you?
I think I was actually sold on the PS5 before this event. I think it was the last presser they had. Like, I think the last event or showcase that they did.
Yeah.
And for me, of course, it was GT7. Like when they announced GT7, I was like,
it wasn't Bug Snacks. It wasn't Bug Snacks that did it.
It wasn't Bug Snacks. It wasn't fucking Bug Snacks. No, it was GT7
Oh, I was just holding my breath for a new knack game, man.
I saw a few people saying
a lot of people were too. A lot of people were too. But when I saw like a numbered GT, I was like, yes, yeah, it's going down, son.
Yeah, the last event for me, Miles Morales, Kena, which recently got delayed, but I'm okay with that with the current landscape of things. And Horizon 2 was like, I already knew. And Demon Souls, we knew about Demon Souls before. We didn't know, again, we didn't know release dates or price points or anything like that back then. But I already knew when we saw that it was like, it's obvious that I was going to get it. This event was the I need it day one event because I found out what is there day one. And I was like, oh my God. I don't even know how I'm going to play all these games day one. So I've been sold on it for a while, but this event, it's weird because the industry has kind of gone back and forth between whether or not consoles. How do I put it? The console market is healthy, I suppose, where the practices in it regarding exclusivity and subscription services and price points, which is a big thing we have to talk about today. And yet, every time I still watch a PlayStation, like a Sony one, it's the only one that gets me feeling that way. The Xbox ones, I go, I'll just buy it on PC. Right. The Switch ones, I go, oh, that's cool.
And see, that's another thing to think about. And like, it's a huge comparison in the schools of thought between Xbox and Sony. And like all summer, all like, I guess, gaming sphere sort of kind of, you see this comparison where Xbox is like, hey, we're releasing a console, but you can play all this shit on PC. And essentially kind of cannibalizing their sales, which doesn't make sense to me if you're really putting out a console. Whereas, Sony is really driving home exclusivity, like the PlayStation 5 will do this and that, and they're really, really trying to push consoles. So it's really, really unique to see this wide comparison in schools of thought when it comes to console releases and how they go about it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. It almost seems like Xbox this generation is trying to lean into the idea of being like a budget gaming PC.
Right. And
that's like it's a nice angle to take. It's a good angle to take. And the idea of having like the Xbox Games Pass and being able to like play the same games on your PC and on your Xbox without having to like purchase multiple copies, and that's all compelling. But yeah, I think for like console exclusivity, which is itself like a bit of a double-edged sword and not terribly consumer friendly, it is going to be driving sales for the PS5 in a major way. I mean, like we already saw a bit of drama over the trailer for Demon Souls being mislabeled as a limited PS5 exclusive, and that was going to be coming to PC eventually, and they had to like jump on that one like real quick, which again seems to be sort of indicative of them really like prioritizing this idea of exclusivity.
And one thing we're seeing, obviously chat's already brought it up, in that Xbox's Game Pass has been a really major thing for them. Probably the most major thing in recent years, more so than even their upcoming console release, is that PlayStation seems to be attempting to add something similar to that to Plus, but obviously it's exclusive to their platform still. It's still not going to have it on Windows or anything like that. Mr. Byrne brought up an interesting point yesterday on State of the Realm, as it was unavoidable. 16 came up in a podcast about 14, in that the reason why they're pushing these things so hard is really to create ownership of pretty much everything that you do. They want to cut out any middleman altogether. They're willing to throw some money at companies to give their games in this pass for whatever much a month, as opposed to having third-party retailers take revenue out of their pocket off of their digital platform. And so I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, Ethys, because Byrne was very passionate about really being glad that at the very least we still have a physical disc console,
a secondhand market,
a secondhand market and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Like it's anti-consumer and it's anti-small business, and anything that we see like in the gaming sphere, in the sort of technology sphere more broadly, about like large multinationals trying to like monopolize and cut out middlemen, which I mean, okay, let's be real, they're not often small businesses. They're normally stuff like GameStop and EB Games and stuff like that. but still, some of them are. Yeah, I mean, so the secondhand games back home in Australia, right? If I'm buying a secondhand Switch game, it'll be like maybe $4 or $5 cheaper than buying it new. And you know, PS4 games, PS3 games, if they're like games that have sold really well, it's gonna be like the same thing. You get like the budget bin of like, you know, pick 3 for like $40 or whatever, but it'll be you know, like the FIFA from 6 years ago or something. So yeah, I'm not so much sold on like the idea of the sort of secondhand market and like budget gaming being further cannibalized, but I think it's fair to say, like, looking at this point in tandem with the fact that they're like pushing up the prices for new AAA releases by what, like $10 it seems.
Yep, that's
$10. Yep.
Yeah, and that's huge. That's a lot. We're looking at that from that. We're looking at like 110, 120 Australian dollars, which is it's ridiculous. It's not great.
You say that, but I remember seeing a like somebody posted this on Twitter. It was a ad from like mid early 90s, and I think it was a holiday ad for Super Nintendo and certain Super Nintendo games.
Oh yeah,
funny thing. There were 2 games. One of them was Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, and I can forget what the other one was. But those games were at the time $69.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But back in the 90s, you would get like maybe 2 games a year, and you would have those and you would play them over and over.
And then
you
you'd go to like your local rental and pay like $5 like on a weekend. Then that would be would be your weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you can look at like the title to title price comparison and make that argument, but I think that the budget for people's gaming habits is definitely been increasing exponentially, and this is another step up. Now that said, the console itself is $100 cheaper than the PS3 was at launch.
That's not something to be proud of necessarily. I wouldn't.
No.
As somebody with a fat PS3 behind me, trust me, not something to be proud of.
Yeah, for sure. So the console hasn't been like massively marked up, but they've kind of realized over the last couple of generations that it's not the console that they need to make money on, and you know, it's totally fine to be selling the consoles at a loss, and I expect, you know, both PlayStation and Xbox will probably be doing so for the most part. I mean, if you look at the specs for the thing, like you'd pay more than that just for the video card if you were putting it in a PC. So yeah, it's just a case of, is that fairly mitigated by increasing the price of games, or is it again like quite radically anti-consumer, which I think you could certainly make an argument for.
I think you could. I think a lot of it also is this again, it's unavoidable coming up. The current climate is not one where someone wants to see a $10 increase in something that they use as their primary sort of either escape or entertainment source. Nobody wants to see it. I lived in New Jersey. I didn't want to see the price of the George Washington Bridge go up by $2 in a year. And I only used that thing like 2 or 3 times in a year at the time. So nobody wants to see it right now, I think, is above anything else. Whereas I think there are some people who are a little bit more rationalized, like this discussion here. It still is a hard hit to take in a year that's already been pretty shitty for a lot of people. So, and especially because it was the same day the 3080 came out, and that was cheaper than everyone expected it to be. For those PC
not in Australia.
Gamers. Not in Australia, but nothing is cheaper in Australia.
You could buy a car for less in Australia.
Yeah, nothing's cheaper in Australia though, so it's always the time. Have we got pricing on PlayStation Plus? Is that being increased? I haven't paid attention.
Because I haven't either.
Not that I've seen so far.
I've been subscribed to it for years. I get the email, thank you for your purchase every month, and I just don't even look at it. I'm just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice. You've ruined it. I don't have a fucking choice. Don't thank me for anything. You're fucking forcing me. I can't do shit without this half the time. So
well, for people that already have it, it should be pretty stoked. I mean, let me see. Where's the list? Do you guys know off the top of your head?
No, I don't know.
Of the games, the games that they included.
I know Bloodborne's on there.
You mean with the update to the PS4 library that's just now part of PlayStation Pass? Yeah, the thing that's again, it's not really like I earlier compared it kind of like to Game Pass, but yeah,
I got a list for you. God of War, Last of Us Remastered, Uncharted 4, Battlefield 1, Monster Hunter World, Fallout 4, Final Fantasy 15, The Last Guardian, Ratchet & Clank, Infamous Second Son, Days Gone, Bloodborne, Detroit Become Human, Batman Arkham Knight, Mortal Kombat X, Persona 5, Until Dawn, and Resident Evil Biohazard are all going to be free on the PS Plus pass from launch in PS5. And for people that already use PlayStation Plus, like that's a lot.
That's a list of games I own.
That is a stacked list. And that, I mean, you could play through all of those in a couple of months and then cancel your PS Plus membership if you really wanted.
It is worth mentioning that does not include Iceborne and it does not include Royal for Persona 5. It is the vanilla Persona 5.
Okay.
And it is vanilla world. So
still, like, that's a pretty
good list.
Still pretty stacked, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even look at that. I never look at the next generation console and what's coming with it, and ever consider the last generation to be part of my decision making. I look at what the new things is. Most of the games you just named I've played through. Like, yeah, it's cool that they'll be on the pass. It's great for someone picking it up who didn't play them. That's not how I judge my next generation.
Most of those games are in my library right now.
Yeah, most of those games are in my library. So I look less at that and more at everything else that was in it. But I do appreciate it from like, I'm glad to see other, like, I don't use Game Pass, but I'm not, it's just because I don't like being subscribed to something just to get free games on 90% of the time. It's like when you buy things on sale on Steam and you're like, great, I got it on sale. And then you have 40 games you never played. It's like, that's how I kind of feel when I'm paying monthly for Game Pass, and same for this exact kind of function. I only use Plus to have the online functionality all the time. That's the only reason I even keep it. So,
yeah, I think that's reasonable. Yeah. Now, do any of you? I'm seeing so many articles banging on about the size of the PS5, and does anyone?
Are you talking about memory or the actual size?
No, I mean the physical dimensions of it. It weighs 4.5 kilos, which is 10 pounds.
Thank you for. I was just about to say, please tell me what that is in American.
Yeah. All right. Let me give you American measurements. Yeah, so it weighs 10 pounds. It is 15.4 inches by 10.2 by 4 inches.
That's not that big.
Or 39 centimeters by 26 centimeters by 10.4 centimeters. It's huge. It's pretty big. It's a lot bigger than the Series X or the Series S. Like a lot bigger.
Hey, at least it's not a damn drive-through speaker box.
Yeah,
damn, he's just shitting on the design of the ass. He's not even. I had nothing bad to say about that. It just makes it just funny in pictures.
Apparently, losing the disk drive will bring it down to 8.6 pounds. I'm seeing so many articles banging on about the physical size of the thing and how like inconvenient that's gonna be, and I'm like, do any of you use a full tower desktop? Like, who cares? Does anyone actually care? Is that actually like something that factors into people's decisions? Like, oh man, the PS5 looks great, but it's like 30% larger than the Xbox, so I guess I'm going for the Xbox.
I feel like about year and a half, maybe 2 years later, we're getting a slim PS5, so it's not even really a big deal.
Yeah, you wait for the slim, I'll wait for the Pro.
Yeah, like it's a non-issue to me. Like, I don't care about the size or anything. I'll find, like, people are going to find a place to put it.
Yeah.
Like, they will make space.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I can't think about how I manage space and manage games because I don't care. Everything's a mess around me. It'll go in the most. But I think back to my childhood and I think back to like family members who had family entertainment systems and family rooms and things like that. And I think to the amount of space they had available. And if they had something like this would just straight up not work. Now, obviously, the changes, the way people organize family rooms or entertainment sections of their house is a lot different now. But there's still definitely a space problem for people that have that kind of setup. So it's not fair for me to judge it on that. I just think back to the TV sitting on the giant fucking thing with the cabinets and the fucking plants on the top. And I think it would fit nowhere in that setup unless maybe you put it on its side somewhere. And I have a feeling,
you just put it on the floor. Like that's what I did when we were kids.
And then I watched my friends get their parents would like trip on it or yell at them for like leaving a mess because they'd have the wires and the control. Because eventually the kids would just be like drop the controller on the ground and just peace, and then their parents would lose their shit. So.
Yeah, but that's part of the experience, isn't it? I remember we had like a cabinet, and we would have to like take the console out of the cabinet, plug it all in. It'd be on the floor, and then we'd play it. We'd sit on the floor, and then when we were done, we'd put it back.
I like this. Looks at current spot for PS4. Yeah, my PS5 will fit there. Depends on if you have it resting on its side or not. Mine's resting on its side, so it's not quite the same space comparison.
Actually, I was talking about my childhood, and now I'm thinking about my partner and how anal she is with this stuff, and it's probably going to be exactly the same. It's going to be exactly the same.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'll understand. But yeah, so so the pricing aside, the console aside, obviously we've talked about the game price, the increase to that. Before we get into kind of, for me, what is the biggest game announcement of the presentation, I think we can all kind of agree it just is kind of the biggest announcement of that. What other games did you see that at this showcase that weren't necessarily at previous showcases or were more in detail at the showcase that got you excited on the side? Other reasons why you're picking up the console, I suppose, if you're picking
from this showcase.
From this showcase. It could be something new that was shown at this showcase as well, like something new, but it was about the old game. Like obviously, Demon Souls and Miles Morales both had sections that brought about some new excitement.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was mostly Demon Souls because I hadn't really like dived into it so much before I saw that trailer. I just knew that it wasn't going to be FromSoft, and I was like, yeah, okay, all right. The remaster is being done by Bluepoint, which remake, not remaster. It's a remake. It's being done by Bluepoint, which is the same group that did the remake of Shadow of the Colossus, as well as they've handled like a bunch of remakes and remasters from both PS2 and PS3 era, and they've done a great job with those, and I'm really, really excited for that. I think out of all the launch titles, that's what I'm most pumped for. Miles Morales, I mean, Miles Morales is like it's a good like showcase of the technology, I think.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I'm gonna play it, but it's not necessarily like the thing I'm most excited for. I think it's one of those like play once, probably like 15-hour campaign and don't really go back too much. I don't know. What about you, Mike? Was there anything that really jumped out at you?
Oh, I'm feeling real motivated. That's all that comes to mind for me, because Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition was something I've been waiting for since Devil May Cry 5 came out, and that is also available on launch day digitally. So I was feeling real motivated because I got 2 Devil May Cry games in one fucking presentation as far as I'm concerned when it came to the other title we're going to talk about. Demon Souls was a big one, although I felt like it looked kind of stiff almost. Maybe it just wasn't the best presentation of it. There were some.
But those load times.
The load times were great, but it looked a little stiff to me, so I was a little concerned about that. But I'll still play it. I played the original. The original was, if we want to talk about stiff, the original is really, really stiff. But it's stiff in the way that like Souls games are known for.
And I kind of looked at that and I thought it seemed like they were just trying to be true to it. You know, like they want it to feel better, but they don't want it to feel like completely alien. You know, they're not gonna make a remake of Demon Souls that feels like Sekiro. You know,
right?
It's still got to be Demon Souls. So yeah, I didn't really consider that. That's interesting. I mean, okay, look, we got the announcement of Hogwarts Legacy.
Oh, God, I don't even want to talk about
fuck
that.
J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I said before you even got on the thing, we probably shouldn't even talk about Harry Potter.
No, that's all I want to say. So if anyone's wondering why we're not like yammering on about that, because our position is quite clear. We're not excited for that. Yeah.
I do feel bad for the devs on that, because I've had other games where I'm never going to shit on the people who worked on it if it ends up.
Absolutely.
But I mean, it's like Diablo 4. I'm still conflicted about that with everything that's happened with Blizzard in recent years. But, you know, at the same time, I kind of want to support the devs. And it's a little less, what's the word I'm looking for? Morally reprehensible, I suppose, to support Diablo 4, perhaps. It's still quite a bit, but it's a rough situation to be in for devs for that. So. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, you know, it's a gig, it's a job. The devs, you know, I'm sure they're wonderful people and they worked really hard on it and all that. And I hope no one gives them any hate or vitriol. I know they will get some hate, but like, you know, just try and keep that in mind, everyone. But
if it ends up being good, I'll at least congratulate the devs for a job well done.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, so I had Devil May Cry 5 is a huge one. God of War 2. As soon as I saw that, I literally just went, boy. That's all I needed to see. It's God of War 5 technically. It's you know, it's Ragnarok. It's probably better to just call it Ragnarok, but that's I need it. Boy. So that's
I cannot believe how much love Nordic culture's been getting these last like couple of years in particular, between this and Valhalla. Man,
I'm gonna have to replay the old one when the new one gets a release date. Yeah. So, Sly, how are you feeling? Motivated? How motivated are you feeling?
Well, my motivating factors, Village RE8.
So I have a question for you about that, because you were actually the person I wanted to talk about the most. Was it just me, or does that trailer not that exciting?
I need more info.
Yeah,
we all have more questions than answers, and I need gameplay. And it has the same feel as RE7.
Yeah,
but I just need more info.
It was such a generic horror trailer, you know?
Yeah, the first one was way better. The first RE, and honestly, to be fair, it had the Redfield scene at the end. But yeah, I felt like this wasn't a great trailer. I felt that way about a lot of the 7 trailers, though, to be honest. I remember feeling that way about a lot of the stuff about 7 pre-release, and then 7 came out, and I was like, wow.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see something maybe at TGS. I don't know. The game I've kind of had interest in for a while, Deathloop. Deathloop is really intriguing to me. What is it? Go ahead.
If I see one more trailer for that fucking game, I'm going to lose my mind. Every trailer is the fucking same thing. It's such a cool idea. It's going to be a good game probably, but I'm sick of their trailers for it. Stop. Yeah. It's the same fucking trailer every time. That's fine. It'll be good. I actually think it'll be good too. I just can't. I hate their trailers specifically.
I agree with you there, but another driving factor for me is that we have a game where POCs are the main protagonists, and you don't see that in a lot of games these days. So kudos to the devs for bringing in people of color as your protagonists and your driving factors in the game. So I'm definitely interested. Demon Souls, of course. I know Miles Morales is going to be good. My only issue is that I didn't play the first Spider-Man. I feel like I need to go back and play that.
Well, the deluxe edition will ship with it as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if you don't get around to it before Miles, I wouldn't. I'm not going to spoil anything, but I think well enough you'll be able to just go into Miles Morales. I think you'll be okay.
Okay.
And isn't it? It's on.
It's going to be on PS4 also, I think, too. Isn't it?
Yeah, Miles Morales is coming out on PS4 as well. I'm just checking. Okay, it doesn't look like. Yeah, it doesn't look like the first Spider-Man's going to be on the PlayStation Plus list. I was just double checking that.
Right.
But yeah, the deluxe edition of Miles Morales will come with a digital copy of the first Spider-Man game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
it's a good game, but if you don't get around to it, I'd still say just probably hop right into Miles Morales. I think you'll be fine enough to do that.
All right.
Yeah, I'd say so.
That's fair.
There's a few scenes you might want to quickly grab like a YouTube of, but not like a super whole lot, I think. Okay, so there is the main showing for our PlayStation 5 Showcase, which for our channels in particular is probably the biggest one. But I know Sly wasn't super happy. I didn't want to talk about the Nintendo Direct.
All right, what do you got, Sly?
Angry. I'm not angry about it. Jesus Christ.
You were not thrilled. You were like, "Wait, why not?" Before the show started. And I was like, "It's Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Stories 2. Both are probably going to be pretty good. The Rise stuff looks great. I really like what I've seen of Rise so far.
Looks fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Looks fucking amazing.
It looks really, really good. And then Stories 2, I never played Stories 1, but I hear it's like Pokemon Monster Hunter,
same.
kind of.
Same. Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been told. I don't know if that's accurate.
I'm thinking about going back and streaming it. I'm thinking about it.
Apparently the West didn't get any of the DLC for Stories 1 , I've been told, or something like that. So I have no idea. I don't know.
It didn't seem to be terribly well received from what I heard. I mean, like it seemed like it was a fine, like Pokemon style game, but a lot of Monster Hunter fans were like, "Why this isn't what we want? We want a Monster Hunter game."
Just to be clear, I have all of my Stream Raider stuff. I have all my Stream Raider stuff turned off, and somehow I just played audio, and I have no idea how. It scared the shit out of me because literally nothing with it is on anywhere on any of my scenes or I don't know how it happened, but it scared the shit out of me. So just disclaimer. I'm sorry for the loud noise.
So you reckon Stories 2 is going to be worth having a look at?
I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
I don't see why not.
I mean, I'm surprised you didn't play the first one, Mike. It seems
I didn't know the first one existed until Stories 2 was announced.
I knew about it. I just missed out on it. Like, I was just playing too much shit.
World was really my introduction to Monster Hunter. I'd known about it for years, but I never played it.
Dauntless was my introduction to Monster Hunter.
So I'll give Stories 2 its fair shake. As long as I don't need to play Stories 1 to play Stories 2, because I won't. The only thing I don't like about Rise and the only thing I don't like about Monster Hunter Rise is the release date.
Oh.
Because it's the same day as Balan Wonderworld, which I have been looking forward to for quite some time. And that upsets me.
Okay.
So March 26, 2021. But that's like there was Disgaea 6, there was Rune Factory 5, Hades for Switch, which is a great game even if you're not picking it up for Switch. Hades is a great roguelike. I could highly recommend it.
And boxing.
Yeah, and boxing. Yeah. Like there's not like there wasn't like stuff, but it was a mini direct and
the partner showcases are usually light, with the exception of like the first partner showcase when we actually got confirmation of SMT5. So
yeah, so they're never going to mention it again, so it's fine.
See, fuck this shit. Like, I know we're doing a 16 show. I'm invoking co-host rule that the minute we get information about SMT5 and a full-blown trailer, I will analyze the shit. We will do a TBG. And I will school these two jabronis about all that is SMT. There.
All right. Sorry. Which clause is that?
Yeah. That's gonna be my. Which clause? Which
I haven't heard of that one before. Yeah. I don't think that's ever been invoked before.
It definitely has been. Never so formally, but it definitely has been. The difference is I'm normally the one invoking it. So I never say I'm invoking it. I just say this is happening, and you guys. This is happening.
Yeah, yes. I just get a Twitter message. Hey, slide. So yeah, we're doing this right.
I mean, that's literally how this TBG happened, and he's like, I figured probably. Yeah.
I figured.
All right.
It says SMT clause in the hidden in the little text at the bottom of the contract. There you go. Okay. But now we are going to move on to the main topic of the show. The thing that the PS5 Showcase, literally, if anyone even still cares about a Showcase, quote, winning, if that's even still a thing, it would have started on that note in this case for the PlayStation 5. Because despite attempting to quash rumors and baseless accusations of involvement in directing, which were still technically was right. Final Fantasy XVI has indeed been confirmed for some time in the future, whatever that ends up meaning at this point. And before we talk about it, I think it would behoove all of us to do something we've probably already done about
100 times.
100, yeah. To maybe go and watch it first. Before we talk about it. So I don't know if you gentlemen want to pull it up and watch it as I'm playing it on stream.
Got it pulled up.
All right. Well, on that note, let's watch the trailer one more time. Why not? Right, one more time. We'll have it for the next 1,000.
You all know the target. Shiva's dominant. And only the dominant.
How do we even know the girl will be among them?
Our kind do not question orders, we follow them.
Sergeant, they've summoned their icon.
Icon? That thing's a bloody mountain.
Our foe will not relinquish their mother crystal easily. This will be a bitter fight.
You should not be out of doors. We have discussed this. Come, Joshua. Your father will be expecting us.
I am Joshua's shield. I'm sworn to protect him.
What do you mean you refuse? Did you not pledge your sword to our cause?
What does it matter? It was the Dalmex who drove back the Crusaders in the Battle of the Twin Realms, was it not?
Without the blessing of the Mother Crystal, we cannot defend our realm from the spread of the Blight.
So, I sent in the Dragoons. Imperial Vipers. Do they really mean to invade us?
It's the Archduke's son.
The Phoenix.
Joshua! Stop this!
Second icon of fire. But that's impossible.
All right. So we can just watch it again, right? That's fine. We can just loop that a few times.
Yeah. One more time.
Okay.
One more time.
Yeah. All right. So that is the official Awakening trailer for Final Fantasy 16, and I get chills every time I watch it. So right off the bat, what was... I didn't watch either of your reactions to this, if there is a way to watch them. I'm sure Sly has one. I'm not sure about Ethys. But... words?
The initial reaction from the showcase was like, okay, wow. That's a hell of a way to start a goddamn showcase. Well, fuck. And yeah, it was just like, I was just amazed. I was like, what the fuck? The fuck? And just straight silent for the rest of the trailer. It was really good. It was really amazing.
Yeah, I was speechless. There might have been a little bit of tears, maybe just a little bit. I was relieved in a weird way, because like we've known that this has been coming, right? And we've known, like we haven't known, but we've known that Yoshida and his business division has been behind it. And there's been this sort of anticipation of like, which direction is it going to go in? Is it going to be another like Final Fantasy 15 sort of production mess? Or is it going to be Yoshida's like dream Final Fantasy game that he's been talking about for years every time, anyone's interviewed him about, other projects or what's coming up next, like what he wants to do. And it seems like it's that, right? It seems like it is what we were hoping for. So there was this like overwhelming sense of relief for me, like, oh, thank God, it seems like they're on track. It seems like they're doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. Oh my goodness. Look, for the couple of people that don't know yet, it is Creative Business Unit 3, which is headed by Yoshida. Yoshida is producing. He's not directing it. He never lied. He said that he was not going to step down from 14, from his roles in 14, and he's not. I know there's been like a lot of anxiety about that. Like, oh, well, does this mean that 14 is kind of like being palmed off to someone else? It's absolutely not the case. So we know he's producing. We know that director is
Hiroshi Takai.
Yes, Takai.
Which,
yes,
if you don't remember, if you've watched any of the 14-hour broadcasts, he's the guy who they make do silly things all the time.
Does all the crazy shit.
Yeah. I think in the One Rising event, isn't he like on the back of like a horse or something, like in like a section?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah.
And he was involved in the Saga series. He's been working on Final Fantasy games since Final Fantasy V. He came on the task force when Yoshida took over 14. He was one of the people on that task force to kind of, bring back 14 from the ashes. So he's been working in the background a lot. He hasn't gotten as much, limelight as Yoshida, but he has been like heavily involved in 14's resurgence. He directed Last Remnant. What else? Oh, we know one more person. This has not been confirmed.
Is this Ryota?
Yeah, exactly. Ryota Suzuki, who was battle designer for Capcom for 20 years, did the combat design of DMC5 and of Dragon's Dogma. Two games that have very different,
opposite,
very, very different, but very like innovative battle designs. And he is almost definitely the battle director for Final Fantasy 16. You can see the influence like throughout the trailer. I think that one of the things that people have been concerned about off the back of Final Fantasy 15 and to a lesser extent off the back of the Final Fantasy 7 remake is how the combat is going to be handled. And obviously, it's not turn-based. Every time there's a new Final Fantasy title, there's always going to be like, a small group of people that are like, back in my day, Final Fantasy games were turn-based. What's this action RPG bullshit? But it seems like a very sort of like skill-based, minimalistic action RPG combat. One character, it seems like.
So far,
either that or they just so far.
Yeah,
I've got some things to say about that.
Yeah. We'll get to it.
Okay.
As for other people that are involved, we don't know for sure, but there was a group of people that were working on 14 that left immediately after Heavensward was launched, and were moved to some mystery project, basically. And it tells us two things. Firstly, that this has been in development since shortly after Heavensward was launched. And secondly, that these people are almost definitely on board. And for me, the most significant of those is Kazutoyo Maehiro. He was the lead main scenario writer for A Realm Reborn and Heavensward. He was moved to this mystery project. His involvement here has not been confirmed, but I think it is pretty safe to say that he is going to be the lead main scenario writer for 16, or at least one of the main scenario writers for 16, which is really exciting. I mean, Ishikawa is brilliant and amazing, has done wonderful things for 14, but she started under Maehiro, and he is a really excellent main scenario writer. Who else? Who else? Oh yeah, we've got Soken's name being thrown around.
Yeah, Alex. Alex made a video breaking down the theme of the trailer and how there's a lot of Soken's I guess habits or things that he does in his other songs that are iconic to him thus far. After he's analyzed so much music, I'll take his word for it. Go watch Alex's videos. Go watch Alex's videos.
Alex Mukala. On YouTube. He's amazing. He's a funky Frenchman and he's amazing. The thing is, like, deconstructing the trailer OST, it's either Soken or it's someone who is being so heavily influenced by Soken that the OST is going to be awesome either way.
Yeah.
Either he's writing it or whoever is writing it has been studying him and
Soken, yeah.
And his sound, and his, Soken's stamp is going to be on it, his influence is going to be on it. So I'm waiting for Soken to come out and say something, but I think at this point we're all kind of expecting that.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else have we got?
There's a lot of rumors floating around. There's very little of the staff being confirmed at this point. Most people are just looking to trends. I think there's a couple of other people who disappeared between Stormblood and Shadowbringers that I remember being brought up when the credits for Shadowbringers first rolled. That were it's presumed, but really it's a question of when did this really begin? Is probably the question most people are asking, and I think a lot of that has to do with the scars of Versus 13 leading into 15. Even somewhat the scars of 7 Remake, because even though 7 Remake was not in development for 10, 15 years, it was something that since like 2003 people have waited and anticipated on. So people really want to know a time frame. People want to be able to predict a time frame. And so the only time frame we almost have any certainty of is that Creative Division 3 was made in April of 2019 in the new fiscal year. And it was officially labeled as such, which is almost certainly something they did to better prioritize development and resources going into this new project. So I'm feeling confident about this, about a release window for this game being made known to us next year, but not at releasing next year. And I don't see that as a chance in hell, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like what they've got, it is kind of hard to say, but it looks pretty damn polished.
Not polished enough for 2021.
Dude, there's that crooked tree in the one scene. I don't know, man. I don't think that's on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm being cautiously optimistic. I'm really hoping that we see it at the end of next year, but I'm not expecting that. I do think that they have been working on it since shortly after Heaven's Ward was released, and I think that is going to help assuage some of the concerns about Yoshida's role as well. As like people are thinking like, even if he's still directing and producing 14. Surely he's going to have to like dial back his involvement a little bit to prioritize 16. And to that I say, well, first of all, 16 is not going to be, you know, an MMO like long-term service game. It's going to be mostly like one and done. And secondly, I think most of that work has already been done. I think most of Yoshida's role has probably already been going on in the background for several years now without any of us even noticing, and it hasn't been affecting 14. There's no reason why we should assume that it will in the next coming years, right?
Right. The only other then question is how much was it impacted by COVID, which is obviously also on everyone's mind, because obviously no doubt 16 was impacted in some way, shape, or form. So but that also means they've now got all the systems in place to handle anything like that. So still same learning lessons as 14 as far as I'm concerned in that regard.
I am really glad that Nomura is in the basement working on Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Like, I'm excited.
I feel the same way. Yes,
I'm excited for Part 2. I enjoyed the remake, but I am so glad that he is on the sidelines for this one. All love and power to him, but yeah.
I've played Kingdom
I'd like
Hearts
to know
3.
if Matsuno's got anything to do with it. Yeah.
Matsuno's apparently declined that he's involved at the moment. So did Yoshida. But then again, Yoshida was more like, you asked me if I was directing. Don't believe those rumors on the internet.
I mean, look, it stinks of Matsuno. Like, Matsuno's flavor is all over it. But Matsuno's flavor is also all over 14. And Yoshida is a huge Matsuno fan. He's always talking about Tactics and Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy 12 and how much he's been influenced. Yeah, Vagrant
There's
Story,
a lot of people trying to we'll talk about that, about tie-ins, I suppose, with the 16 trailer, because there is a lot to sort of dissolve from what we see. So one of the big things that Yoshida said in recent years is that if he were, not saying I am, but if I were to have my own Final Fantasy, I'd make sure it's a return to high fantasy. I'm gonna, every time he says if, I'm just replacing it with okay, but really though it's happening, because it's when he says words like looking into it or still in development, it means it's not happening. Okay, but when he says if this were to happen, it's already happening. Okay.
So what you're saying is we should work backwards through every single interview where he's explored these hypotheticals and just be like, confirmed.
Yes, exactly. Because I remember going all the way back to 2013 when he was asked, before Realm Reborn came out, if he were to pick any job that he could add from Tactics, it would be Machinist into Final Fantasy XIV. That was before Realm Reborn even came out. He also said, if I had a choice from a classic Final Fantasy, it'd be Red Mage also. He says if. Every time he says if, it pops up sooner or later.
But you're right. Like, he has been saying for years that, like, this is his dream. Like, here's my dream game that I want to make. And, you know, it maybe if one day in the distant future, it seems like he's doing it. It seems like he's been making it.
Yeah.
And it seems like those ifs have either been things that he's been actively doing at the time that he said it, or there are things that have been on his list of demands for if he accepts the position as producer for Final Fantasy 16. Which is great, which is phenomenal. Speaking of the high fantasy vibe, it is also really dark.
Sly was probably like Type 0 vibes. You get any like less technological Type 0 vibes from that, Sly?
A little, not too much Type 0, but yeah, I agree. It is kind of on the dank side a little bit.
Saw
like, it's not. Go ahead.
We saw at least 2 characters just get like straight up wasted,
murdered. Yeah,
and screaming.
And then a third one who we don't see the character, but we can assume somebody is being literally ripped apart from like the outside in.
Yeah. Look, Final Fantasy games have always been dark. Like I'm seeing a lot of noise on social media at the moment about like, oh man, what are they doing? Why are they trying to turn it into Game of Thrones or whatever? I'm like, this might be a little bit more like explicitly, but if you've been paying attention, Final Fantasy's always been like this. It's just usually been a little bit more subtle than what we're seeing in this trailer.
Well, for a lot of Final Fantasy's existence, the technology behind doing something like this hasn't really been on the side of it. And then they've also shied away from doing anything too explicit at times. Like if you think back to a lot of the really old Final Fantasies, there's times where people take like boulders, you know, they get crushed to death to, you know, save an ally or something like that. And then you start to get into some of the later generations, like 8, I think 8's one of the first ones where I really saw too much blood be drawn. 7 too, but 8 at the very beginning where he literally cuts his face open with Cypher slicing that. I remember seeing that and thinking like, oh man, I didn't expect that. Obviously it's still quite tame. But you move on and on and on, and you move to 10 and 11 and 12 and 13. And the theme for the darkness is kind of like a theme always. Like there's always these like these things that are, I guess, alluded to or not really seen. This one's just showing it to us. And I feel like with a more medieval high fantasy scene, most everything we see in fantasy that's from the medieval times is pretty fucking explicit, I feel like. And that kind of matches the tone they're going for.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. And that tone is also very much in Banrioda's wheelhouse. And interviews with him and his influences, he's always, I mean, he's making like similar references to Yoshida, being more interested in like the medieval high fantasy and stuff like that. But he's also like constantly banging on about Game of Thrones and the idea that
not the final season.
No, I can't imagine he's too fond of that. And the idea that this sort of dichotomy of like good and evil, light and darkness is something that should be more complicated. It should be more subverted and really exploring like politics and exploring the more like nuanced character motivations and not shying away from you know, adult themes and violence and stuff like that is something that Oda has been trying to put into 14 and only really getting like knocked back by the like the ratings issues and stuff like that. So I hope, dare I hope that Oda is also involved in this somehow. Who knows? But it definitely has his smell on it. I mean, the thing is, like, Yoshida producing and anyone from 14 being involved, it is going to look like 14. There are going to be so many 14 inspirations and allusions in it. And of course, that has been leading people to some pretty wild conspiracy theories, which we have to get into.
We will.
We have to eventually.
We kind of went over some yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, a lot of yesterday we more so went over the less the conspiracy theories about the game and more so that the existence of 16 under Yoshida will mean 14 will be impacted more directly.
The deterrence of 14, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was more so the route we went yesterday. Less so than it's another shard or, you know, things like that, which, you know, we'll probably get into as we break down some of the dialogue of the trailer a little bit. I don't know if you have any input on. I think I know what your input is because I've known you long enough about the whole, you know, so this means
we're
gonna lose.
You want to guess my position?
That's not how businesses work, I believe would be the position. At least the outlook or anything along those lines.
So what do you think my opinion, my position is on what and how 16 might be tied into other?
Oh, I meant more so about the development Like that was the first place about.
Oh, right. You're
Yeah.
speaking about like how it's tied to other Final Fantasies.
Yeah, no, I was talking about just the outright development team both being under that. That was the topic we hit yesterday first. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we definitely see eye to eye on that.
Have we confirmed that this is Fabula Nova Crystallis?
No. It's not. You know how we know it's not? Because they use the word icon.
Okay, well, I don't think that is.
Yeah.
For Fabula Nova Crystallis, that's a pretty dead term in the Fabula Nova Crystallis. So no, definitely not. Specifically referring to, for anyone who is unaware, Fabula Nova Crystallis covers games like 13 and Type 0 and stuff like that. Those games fall under Fabula Nova Crystallis. They use terms like Lyci and Falsi and they all have a similar like astrology and mythos, and this does not seem to be following that at all. If I hear the word Falsi, I'm going to be upset. Ever. Don't want to hear it anymore.
Eidolons, yes. That was the word.
Yeah, Eidolons is from the previous ones. Icon, so this is I'd say there are two things in this, there are 2 or 3 things about all of 16 that lead people to create these conspiracy theories. One of them is the term icon, which is exclusive to the Alligans and the Garleans in Final Fantasy XIV. It was basically given to them by Emmett, essentially, because he's an asshole. Number 2 is Yoshida's involved. And number 3, a bunch of other people from the 14 team are involved. There are some other little aspects in there that kind of creep through. Ifrit's design creeps through the a lot of the classic primals and things like that.
There's a lot that people are grabbing onto. Do you want me to go down the list for you?
I would love to go down the list. Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Number 1, the Chocobo looks like a shoe bill.
Yeah, I saw that one on social media.
It's a shoebokobo. And obviously that's Emmett Selk, right? Because, that's the only shoe build in the franchise. It's got to be tied to Emmett Selk. Secondly, Afrit and Phoenix, right? Those are La Habrea's jam, right? And they've never appeared in any other game. Okay, they're only attached to La Habrea. Okay. And we just got this story about La Habrea blazing a trail across these other shards. There's no way that could be a coincidence. So La Habrea is definitely involved. Okay. Thirdly, the protagonist has got the same voice actor as Ardbert, right? And you guys remember when Ardbert's voice came out of our mouth? All shards of Ardbert have got the same voice. This guy's an Ardbert shard. It's a shardbert. The protagonist is a shardbert. TM, trademark, copyright, TM, Shardbert. If I see anyone else using that name, I will sue. It's a Shardbert. What else? Oh my goodness.
Dragoons.
Talking about mother crystals. Yeah, Dragoon. Talking about mother crystals. Everyone's like, oh, that's got to be Hydaelyn. It's got to be the mother crystal. The trailer's implying there's more than one mother crystal. It's talking about their mother crystal. They're going to defend their mother crystal. If you're making a distinction between one mother crystal and another crystal, you're implying that there's multiple mother crystals, which obviously does not fit. And secondly, mother crystals are like a common theme throughout all the Final Fantasy games.
You're supposed to be backing up the conspiracy theories, not debunking them.
Oh, I'm sorry. No. There's never been crystals or mother crystals in any other one. Okay, the next one is the Void. In 14, the origins of the Void being people taking the power of icons using Aurasight, right? And basically eventually transforming into these monsters, cause the flood of darkness, all that. And at no point in any other Final Fantasy game has a character transformed into a summon. That's never happened. No one's ever hosted a summon before. That's something that's unique to 14 as well. So it's clearly demonstrably between Emmett Selk and La Habrea and Shardbert. Oh, and there's a boy in it. Did you guys know that there's a boy in Final Fantasy XIV? It's an elf boy, to be fair, but his shirt looks kind of similar, and there's no boys anywhere else. So there's the boy, right? So between all of that, people are convinced. There are so many people that are convinced that this is like the origin story for the 13th shard. Welcome back, Sly. You didn't even need to hear that. You knew exactly where I was going, didn't you? Okay. So It's purely incidental that there's no other races, that there's only Midlander Cures in this world. I'm sure there's a very reasonable explanation for that. Yeah.
Hey, the Imperials look really tall, just like in the just like the Garleans do.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I mean, that's the only one, right? Like, other than that, it's like clearly demonstrably one of the shards, isn't it?
So tell me how you really feel.
There's a Vagrant Story connection. The Joshua looks kind of like the Vagrant Story Joshua.
And also the lady who with the pipe looks like one of the ladies from Vagrant Story too. Yeah. Also, Vagrant Story also.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's clearly an inspiration there.
I think Imperials have armor and helmets.
That's true. Oh my god, they do. They've got helmets. They got helmets, and you know why they're wearing helmets, right? They're wearing helmets because they got to cover up that third eye. They're hiding it from us. Yeah, that's right.
He does actually look like a young Aldo from 11. I'll give you that. Joshua does look like a young
y'all are
Aldo.
killing me. Fuck, man.
I'm just gonna say, I'm just gonna throw all the jokes aside. It's its own world. I'm done.
Yeah, hey, Jokes, could you just step out for a minute? We don't need you right now. You've had your fun, Jokes. You just wait outside. Okay. It's bullshit. All right. It's its own thing. Okay. It draws inspiration from 14 for obvious reasons. It draws inspiration from other Final Fantasy games, just like every other Final Fantasy game has. And if there is a connection between one of them, it's going to be so arbitrary, like Easter egg conspiracy theory kind of stuff, like the connection between 10 and 7, which we had one dev saying. Yeah, which we had one dev saying, "Oh yeah, totally," and another dev saying, "No, obviously not. Obviously that is stupid and it's just an Easter egg." That is going to be like the most that we get. So I understand, like, we're all hyped about it as Final Fantasy 14 players. We want to draw these connections and stuff like that. But talking about it as though it's self-evident or it's like demonstrably true is just stupid. All right, just take a step back. Just
breathe.
I'm excited too. I'm crazy excited. I've already declared, like, I'm gonna be doing lore content for 16 as well. I'm all about that. And if there's a connection there, if there's something to talk about between the two, we'll find it. We'll find it together. But for now, you guys are gonna drive me crazy for the next 2 years. I have to put up with this shit on my timeline.
It's just it's just one trailer, and yes, you can draw so much from one trailer.
The drawing is from Final Fantasy VIII.
You can draw so much from one trailer. You can draw so much from the dev team. Give it time. Let more information come out. Let more trailers come out. Just keep cool heads, okay? Please.
Yeah, because if you don't, I won't.
And I'll have to hear it. We will have to hear it.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, you will.
There's be no getting around that one, unfortunately. Now that being said, it's I don't ever remember much of a discussion like this with 15. I remember a lot of discussion that was like this with 7 Remake when some of the trailers started coming out and people started seeing things that were like, And that's obviously the way that turned out is a whole different topic altogether and how it's still unfolding technically. 16 has taken a life of its own, I feel, so much faster than what we've seen in recent years, because that it's just one of those trailers. They give you enough verbiage and context without really you knowing, because you know that Creative Division 3's trailers have red herrings out the fucking ass. But we can still at least take apart a decent amount from what kind of world we'll be dealing with. So I think we should probably do some of that.
Yeah.
The first thing to take apart is icons, which, again, a term from 14 is one of the largest contributing factors, I feel, to people having that sort of alternate shard theory, in a sense. There's also not 16 shards, guys. Come on. Everyone's like, the other shards are all different Final Fantasies, and then 16 comes out, they're like, that's one of them, and it's like, that's not literally, you can't do that. That's not...
Oh,
That's you can't subscribe to both theories. All right, it stops working after a certain point. All right, they're like 15 had a collaboration. Clearly, you know.
They're gonna do a collaboration with 16. We're gonna have to have this conversation.
I can't wait to have. I hope like Ardbert's like soul sees the protagonist from the trailer, just like.
I really hope not.
What, Ardbert meets Shardbert? Don't you want that? Yeah, the Spider-Man pointing meme, but it's with Ardbert. Mm-hmm. Somebody go make that and tweet it at us all real quick. Just have Ardbert on one of them and the protagonist from the 16, the older protagonist, which is a whole nother point. Please do that real quick. And that could be like, and just put Final Fantasy 14, 16 collaboration at the top. Just go do it real quick, internet. Icons are probably the biggest thing to talk. I think that's deliberate because it seems like the story is pretty much entirely revolved around the icons, based on what they've given us thus far. At least on the surface, it is. So right from the beginning, we get in the very first sentence of the trailer, we get that they are attempting to assassinate. By the way, I've cross-referenced the other trailers, and while in the English trailer they say the target, which could mean kidnapping, assassination, whatever, in one of the other languages they specifically say the target to assassinate is Shiva's dominant. And that's the first thing to unpack is the term dominant, because it's our first peek about how icons work in this world and how the different nations revolve around them, in a sense. So, I'm sure you have a paragraph or two to talk about that term or what it may mean based on the context of the rest of the trailer.
I think between that and talking about their crystal, and this idea of like different sides having different icons, it seems to be this is something we saw in as early as we saw in Type 0, but something we've seen in a few different Final Fantasy titles is where there have been nations that have been built around a crystal that is of a particular aspect. So there'll be like a fire nation, an ice nation.
Oh God, you just reminded me about Larry's tweet. Oh no. He tweeted. In fact, I'm gonna just go find. I'm not even gonna bother trying to. You keep continue your point. I'm just continue your point. I'll bring it up after the fact.
So it seems like each of these crystals are perhaps going to be representing some. It's going to have some connection to the different icons, and then their dominant is going to be, a priest, a chosen one, whatever, that can channel those powers and can like take the form of the icon. That seems to be the implication. That's what I got from it, is like, we're going to go and try and assassinate the person that can become Shiva before they can do that thing. And then they get caught between these two forces.
Now, there is one. Larry's tweet, while it is a joke, but also serious at the same time to some degree, it actually does bring up one major point that is kind of easy to miss with one quick dialogue option or one quick bit of dialogue that happens in the trailer. Larry's tweet, game theory, Final Fantasy XVI has different nations that are aligned to different elements and each have a dominant to control their icon. But everything changed when Ifrit attacked. God damn it.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing, right? Which is really interesting and sort of plays into this theory is when Ifrit is summoned, there's the guard or whatever falling backwards saying a second fire icon, but that's impossible. So it seems the idea that there is like one of each of these, and then the complicating factor is that someone's taken the power of fire, some antagonistic force, I suspect is probably going to be trying to take, co-opt the power of each of them, and shattering that balance in some way. And it seems like we as a protagonist also have to do a similar thing because we're using attacks that have like, the sort of flavor, the iconography of both Phoenix and Titan.
And Garuda.
And Garuda, right. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So I suspect that is going to be, like one of the sort of first major plot hooks is us needing to travel around the world to each of the crystals to accrue their powers. Very, very like classic Final Fantasy sort of idea and try and keep up with this antagonist that's trying to do the same kind of thing to their own, dastardly ends.
It seems sort of astral umbral in a way. Like seeing the antagonist icons, you can see that as one or the other, vice versa. And then the icons of each city state, I guess, being as like either astral or umbral. It does. I see a small, minute connection.
Yeah.
There.
People are going to look for more and more things like that as more and more developers are unveiled, especially if they came from the 14 team. Like you said, if Oda is revealed, then people are going to be looking for recurring themes, like, through and through. If he's not, then all the same, people are still going to be trying to tie things. I mean, that's just the Final Fantasy franchise as a whole. I mean, you always see recurring themes and things like that. So, but so you bring up, that's probably the biggest point, is that if Ifrit is basically considered it's an impossibility. They don't even recognize him. They're not like, oh my god, that's Ifrit. They're just like, wait, a second one. He's unnamed. We only know because we've played Final Fantasy all these years. What's most interesting about that scene is how many red herrings are potentially in the scene that unveils Ifrit. So what we can deduce is that we see the young boy as Phoenix's dominant. It's even explicitly stated at one point. They just say Josh, the Archduke's son, Phoenix. They say that pretty much. What seems to be most interesting is after his father, which we can presume that's his father, the Archduke, who's killed right in front of him with blood splattered on his face, he loses his shit, and we see a tall, fiery figure take the form of Ifrit. That's when the second fire icon. Is that him using Phoenix's power to resurrect his father and thus creating a second one? Or do we think that that the little boy is actually Ifrit, and that's a red herring, that Phoenix is actually something else, since we see the protagonist with Phoenix powers as much as we see him with other icon powers? It's a bit of a tough one.
My first assumption, I guess, was that he was Phoenix, that whoever had murdered, presumably his father, was there to somehow co-opt the power of the crystal, and did so, and became Ifrit. And I think the red herring might be that he also kills Joshua, because it seems like there's the shot of him, like, after he's been summoned, like, leaning over, like, tearing up, like, at something.
I think that's him tearing up Phoenix, not a person. Yeah,
I think that's him tearing up Phoenix. And, the question of whether Phoenix can be killed or not is obviously up in the air there. But the idea of the protagonist being the personal bodyguard to this kid who his father's murdered, then he is murdered, and their whole kingdom falls as a result of the failings of this bodyguard. And then the bodyguard being like, I am going to kill you if that's the last thing I do. And, seemingly taking up this other job with this group of, I don't know, mercenaries or whatever it is. And going on this, like, it seems like years long revenge odyssey to hunt down and kill this guy that murdered Joshua and Joshua's father was, again, the first impulse that I took. And I think, like, a really, really, really compelling idea is, that and Joshua dying, somehow being able to bestow, like, the remainder of Phoenix's power onto the bodyguards. And I think that would be a really interesting narrative.
And it makes sense because the other theory, so right now we only think there's one protagonist, one playable character, and it is that there's a large time skip at some point, which I think is a perfectly valid way to unpack everything that we see there, likely ending with the Ifrit and Phoenix scene, and then cutting back to when they're dealing with Shiva's dominant, probably being like where around the time skip would find them. Because I've taken a look back. I actually need to go back and look at it one more time. We don't have to watch the whole thing. But we see that when he's older, when the older version is the one that actually goes ahead and uses uses the other icon's powers. The big thing I need to check is Garuda. Because I think he's actually still young when he uses Garuda's power. But I'm not going to take that too seriously because they're just trying to do a showcase without spoiling too much. So it's hard to tell like why. No, he is older when he's using Garuda's powers as well. So yeah, he's younger when he's using Phoenix's power, and he's using and he's older when he's using both Garuda and Titan's power. So it still feels like that's somewhat the line of things that along the process of going after the dominance, he is in some way, you know, absorbing or being granted gifts by the various dominants or icons. So I'm quite curious to see how that pans out, because there's a lot to be said about that and how far they'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems like a compelling narrative. You just reminded me, the face tattoo, there are also people that are grabbing onto that and being like, oh, the 14 Shaolians. Doesn't look anything like it.
No, the face tattoo could have a number of reasons. People have already brought up that could be something to mark a criminal, or it could just be part of the crew that he's hanging out with. That's how they identify each other and things like that. There's plenty of reasons for the face tattoo that aren't an Archon. Jesus Christ.
People are seriously grabbing onto that one.
No, I know. There's a lot of things people are grabbing onto, and it's a Lassie brand for the Fabulino Chrysalis. That's another one.
Oh man.
It's okay.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Boy, oh boy. That's how I feel about since this came out. That's literally my only word since it came out. Just boy, oh boy. Boy.
Mike, you said you had some thoughts about the combat and whether or not it's going to be controlling a single player. I like the idea of controlling a single player and having like NPC party members that will come in at certain points, and hopefully that you can have like, I guess like the similar sort of battle synergy to Final Fantasy 15. Like one of the absolute strongest parts of Final Fantasy 15 was those like link. What do they call them? Link action.
You are on the
link
right
attack.
Yeah,
link attack.
Yeah, I think that was one of the strongest parts of Final Fantasy 15 and its combat system. So I'd be hoping for something like that, but I don't mind like the idea of just having a really minimalistic, like cut all of the stereotypical JRPG bullshit from the combat systems. You know, keep it simple.
I mean, I don't mind the idea of something that's more skill focused, Sly.
Again, the Battle Designer did Devil May Cry and Dragon's Dogma. I wouldn't mind going back and controlling a single character, and some people may hate it. Pawns. They do their own thing.
Donald and Goofy give me very different vibes than you guys, apparently, is all I've taken away from this. Very different.
You can change your pawn's inclination at any time. Just saying.
I like that. I like something like that. Something almost like the Gambit system. Just having NPCs that you can basically set and forget and don't have to micromanage like every 2 seconds in every fight.
Yep.
That you can focus on the skill checks. Obviously, you know, particularly people that want to go back to turn-based combat for Final Fantasy, this is not going to be their cup of tea. And like, I'm sorry to piss on your chips, but for me personally, the more like skill-based action combat is what I want and what I will find, compelling and will keep me wanting to, play it. Basically,
worked well for me with 7 Remake. As far as I'm concerned, 7 Remake did the party system perfectly fine. I had no qualms with that. I made a lot of use of it, a lot of use of that game's party system. The big thing with the combat designer, we've got a decent inkling of other things he's worked on before. He's done everything from, well, assuming it is the person. Again, there has not been a hard confirmation, but it oozes his work is the big thing. We've got a good idea of what he's worked on. I mean, he's going all the way back. He was even a combat planner, not really a combat dev, but a combat planner for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Like he's seen it all. All right, he's seen
20 years with Capcom.
Yeah, he's done a lot of things with Capcom, and he's no stranger to focusing on a single character's combat system, but also just having several different singular characters that you focus on at different points in different plot lines and different sections of the game. So I'm not entirely set on the idea that this one character is the only character, especially in a story that seems to be all about so many different nations at play and their aspects. But this would be like the Dante of the game, I'd feel like. You know, that's the kind of vibe I get, no matter which direction they take with it. If I have to draw to one of his other works, this is the Dante of this game. But that doesn't mean there can't be a Nero, a V, a Trish, a Virgil. You know,
Virgil.
You know, somebody who just doesn't use anything like his, something that's heavier, something that's more aerial. You know, there's room for things like that. It's how much they want to jam pack into one character versus how willing they are to explore the avenues of other characters and other perspectives on the same events. So I'm not convinced it's one character yet. I think it's likely. That would be my first takeaway from this, but that it's not unlikely that some of the other characters that we've seen already may even be playable at some point. And I don't think they'll be playable like 7 remake style party members either. It's the thing. I think that the pawns idea that Sly's working on is the most likely thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think that's what I prefer. My other big question is: do we think it's going to be open world? Because 15 was mostly open world, although it often didn't feel like it. Final Fantasy VII Remake was very much on the rails, and the next part will probably be a little bit more open world. But I'm really hoping for almost like a Witcher style open world.
Sorry, I saw Final Fantasy 16 Special Edition featuring Virgil, and I just couldn't help but laugh.
Oh, memes. Memes.
Sly, you go first.
I see this as being very, very linear, very... I mean, I feel it's not going to be as open as 15. There'll be a certain extent to where you can go and what you can do, but I really feel like this will be pretty much on rails.
So what Sly's saying, what Sly's saying is along the lines of what I want to say, but I'm gonna state a little bit differently. I feel like over the years, there's something I've noticed in the Final Fantasy franchise when people talk about it. It's the lack of some people's ability or the ability to distinguish between what is an open world and what is a world map. Because a world map is not open world until the very end. It is something that drives you in a specific direction with a couple of activities along the way that kind of hold you as distractions. They're for all purposes linear, but without telling you here's the path and here's the end of the path, if you know what I mean. And that's how I feel it'll be here. You'll be in portions of the game, you'll be in specific points of the world given to where the story dictates you can be or need to be at any given time, but you're not going to get in your car and drive to the other side of the world like in 15 just to go to some random objective that you have no idea if there's even anything too important there. You're just kind of doing it for the sake of it. And that's very classic Final Fantasy. Here's a portion of the world you're allowed to go to. There's a few things for you to do here, and then eventually you'll find your way to what is our intended next location for you. And by the end of it all, you'll be able to go everywhere, but it'll be by the end of it all closer to the climax of the entire story.
Okay, so you think the structure will be like classic Final Fantasy in that way?
But without not actually having a world map, but the same intended function of the world map of old, in essence. Without setting you on paths. I do think there'll be open areas. Like you if you want, you can just hug the wall the whole time and like avoid everything and maybe find a cave or something. But that they're not going to see like, it's not going to be like 10 where it's save point, go, and then save point, go, save point, go, save point, go. 12 is a pretty good comparison where they lock you out of, you know, they let you go to all these different areas, but you ultimately have an end goal that's very recognizable where it is.
One thing I want to ask, and again, this just might be the SMT in me. Would you ever want choice in your Final Fantasy?
Yeah,
I like
totally.
choice. Mm-hmm. I'm always for choice. But let me put it this way though. I'm for choice. I'm not for 12 endings.
Oh God, no. Yeah.
Let me be very clear about that. I want, if I make a decision, I like it to have some degree of impact. I don't mind being just told a story either. I have no issue with that. But I'm always for opening up the dialogue. But never to the point where it's like bad end, good end 1, good end 2, good end 3.
Oh no, yeah, it's never like that. Because for pretty much the most part, for pretty much everything, all Final Fantasies, it's been A to Z. It's always been one way. You never had choice, and even within 14, your choice really never really mattered. Like it didn't mean anything. I would love to see a Final Fantasy where your choice really impacted the story. Like it really means something. It drives the story in complete different directions, and it gives replayability to it. I would love to see that in a Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm. I would love that.
I don't think it's going to happen here, but I would love to see it.
Yeah, all of Final Fantasy's narratives are so tightly woven and so like tightly controlled and tightly paced that it seems really, really unlikely that we'll be able to make any choices that have like effect on like a main story.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I'm hoping that we have an open world that's full of lots of side objectives and things that we can go and grind, and you know, people that we can help, and you know, interesting, you know, characters for side stories and stuff like that, and having some choice in there where like we can choose to save someone or kill them, and but not have an impact on the main scenario other than maybe like a couple of lines of flavor here and there. That's kind of what I'm hoping for. I would love to have like a full-blown like morality system with, you know, options to, you know, save or kill major NPCs that, you know, tie in like down the way, and then have them sort of converge back to a point in the final chapter so that there's maybe, you know, 2 or 3 different endings. But I'm not expecting that.
I'm more of the line, if I'm going to have decisions that actually impact the ending, the way Persona does it, where you kind of come to a point where you're told.
So, you know, Persona's still
like one choice.
Linear.
You're talking about
it's
one
like,
Persona's incredibly linear.
Persona gives you choice. It's still pretty linear. Like,
Persona's a good example where like I don't mind if there's like a breaking point, or this one decision has like a branching effect, and I can I can see what one branching effect is, go back and continue along what is considered kind of like the true side. But the majority of the decisions you make determine things like rewards or, you know, how time is spent or something. But at the end of the day, if you follow what is the intended path, and they'll make sure that they direct you as much to it as possible, that you will see what is the intended story, what is the intended ending.
I think the best game that has ever handled a system like what we're describing would be Knights of the Old Republic, the original one. And I love that so much, but it's not something that's really like replicable with this generation. I don't think. I just don't really see it happening.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I just want smaller grade decisions. I just don't want a shit ton of endings for no reason. Because for me, that is not a reason to play a game over and over again. It isn't. I'm gonna find out what gives me the factual story. What is intended for me to know, because there is one. Even if there's options for alternate endings, there's a reason why the term true end exists.
Yeah, there's like the canon intended.
Yeah.
Ending. And then there's like bonus stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just having a shit ton of not true endings is not something for me.
And like I said, I'm the SMT school of thought. I just need 3 or 4 endings. That's it. Like 3, like based on alignment, and then 1 true. That's all I need. I don't need like 7.
Yeah, you know what's another good game that does slash sort of true endings pretty well is Bloodborne. You can either choose to have your head cut off or not.
Yeah.
That's 2 different endings, but if you do,
Soulsborne,
yeah, or you choose to, or and then you have the 3 items. You have the 3 umbilical cords, and if you've eaten those, which is a sentence I hate saying every time, then one of those decisions leads to an extra boss. Which I think that the scope of that is quite acceptable.
Yeah.
So
I'm just all for adding replayability.
Listen, so for me, having multiple endings does not increase replayability at all. Like not even a little bit.
It depends on what you put behind them, though.
No, for me it doesn't even depend on what you put behind it. If you put a cool cutscene behind it or something, I'll just go and fucking watch it on YouTube. I don't care. It's a nice bonus if it's a game that I want to replay. Right? If it's a game that earns that from me with a really, really fun, compelling gameplay loop that I want to keep playing after that first, 20 to 40 hours or however long it is. If I want to go back and play it again and I know there's another ending, I'm like, oh great, there's another like little bonus for me for replaying it. But I mean, this is my main problem with Nier Automata, right? Is that people talk about the endings as being this incentive for replay, and I'm like,
but it's not. You're intended to do all of those endings. They're not optional. They're not alternate endings.
You're right. You're right. They're not alternate endings. It's like linear kind of stacking endings. Yeah. But I'm still in the position that like that will not incentivize me if I have played 40 hours of the game and I'm like, all right, I'm done. The gameplay loop, like I've gotten as much out of it as I can. That's the only thing that's going to keep me invested in it, is wanting to keep playing the game. So yeah, alternate endings, nice bonus, not an incentive for replayability for me, I don't think.
I agree. But you know what is an incentive? Some RPG elements. And that's one thing we don't really know much about with this, because whenever you go the action route, RPG elements kind of falls to kind of like a very simple wayside. We've seen it a lot. A lot of games that you normally wouldn't brand as RPGs basically throw in a few stats and say, yeah, we're an action RPG now. As much as I love God of War, it is definitely in that route in the most recent one where they're just like, yeah, there's a skill tree and the gear has like health or attack, and it's like, okay. And then, I don't know, there's all sorts of games do it nowadays. And the question is it going to be going closer to that route where it's like the bare minimum of what qualifies for something that people identify as RPG? Or do you think they're going to be, it's going to be any different than that? Because I think it's going to be fairly simplified. Being Devil May Cry is what we're expecting it to kind of fall under. Get you the options. The options are pretty simple to get to, but it's going to be about how you use them for the most part.
I think that the stuff that's going to influence the combat is probably going to be quite like minimalistic and streamlined. But I don't know. I still think there's going to be stuff to grind, There's going to be, like secret bonus weapons and side bosses and, hopefully some like aesthetic stuff to collect. There's gonna be a bunch of shit to collect, surely.
Yeah, I
don't think like there's so much more to an RPG than like combat. There's so many other elements to role playing.
Right.
And having simple, streamlined, skill-based combat doesn't necessarily like eliminate the entire scope of the rest of that.
I mean, I know we're talking from an action RPG standpoint. I know that, it's easy to talk about it when, one of the devs worked on Devil May Cry.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of compare this, and I know you probably wouldn't say RPG. I kind of compare this in terms of combat, in terms of just looking at combat, which is the only thing we can see and know right now. I kind of compare this to Darksiders a little bit in terms of combat, in terms of possible depth. Like Darksiders allowed you to. There was a Darksiders didn't have a really high ceiling. It's one of those games. It's one of those games where it's like easy to pick up, hard to master in terms of combat. It allowed you to be who you wanted to be, and you could get through in any kind of way. And I feel like 16 will kind of take that turn in terms of strictly combat. From the RPG side, the only thing I can really see is like a skill tree, and like, I mean, there has to be some role playing. I mean, it's a Final Fantasy. Like they're not going to deviate from that, but I don't know how. I don't want it to be. I just don't want it to be shoehorned in to an action RPG game. I want the RPG to be shoehorned into an action game. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because I can't help but get the feeling that certain concepts of Final Fantasy may not be present in that, or I guess in some people's perception of it, because we see the way that the combat works with the icons to some degree. We see that when he has the Phoenix icon, you know, he's got this launcher with the Phoenix, and he shoots fireballs really quickly, and he's got some aerial dodge. He's got a few tools, you know, up his belt, but we don't see much of the other ones. Garuda, we see a pull kind of attack, and we see the Talon swipe in the air that slowly knocks the enemy over. With Titan, we see a parry into a follow-up attack where he actually puts his sword away and just full-on punches. That was the most DMC feeling thing I had in that entire trailer. Given my favorite weapon in 4 with Dante, and in pretty much all of them, is always the fists. Every single time, it is always the fists.
So, do you think we're going to have multiple weapons, or is it just going to be about having different stances with the different icons?
Well, absolutely.
I'd love multiple weapons. I'd love to be able to like sword and board, and then go spear for a bit, and I think that would be great.
That's why I'm wondering if there's more than one character. Because that's where I'd see the weapons. Yeah, the weapon change. I'd have a feeling the primary character is probably the big thing that's going to be swappable is the icons. But the bigger thing is less so the separation of magic and icon, and more so magic being dictated by which icon you have. So if you have if you're currently in Titan stance or whatever, you're probably using more earth-focused magics. If you're in Phoenix stance, you're probably using fire or life-based magics, and we kind of see that reflected in all the parts where he's just using Phoenix. He's shooting fireballs as his basic ranged attack. And is that closer to magic as we would identify it in a Final Fantasy sense, Firaga, as it gets stronger in that sense? Or is it closer to something like Dante's Ebony and Ivory?
Guns.
Yeah. You know, so those are the thing. And then are there variations on those projectiles? A lot of it is just taking the bare bones of what we saw and trying to apply it to what we think about Devil May Cry versus what we think about Final Fantasy. So
I feel like it's easy to get lost in that, like get lost in the whole comparison with Devil May Cry, because it's such an easy comparison. Being as it's recent, we've all played, like most of us have played DMC5, and it's easy to see that comparison with combat and stances, and you kill a boss, you get a certain type of weapon, like the motorcycle or the really big cannon in DMC5. So yeah, I really feel like it's too easy to get lost in that illusion and comparison.
I agree. I'm going to be more interested. Now that the Devil May Cry influences are self-evident, I'm going to be more interested in exploring the Dragon's Dogma influences.
Yeah,
and
that's
if we see in a future trailer with the protagonist like climbing up onto the side of an icon and like stabbing it in the eye or something, yes. or like picking up NPCs and like throwing,
yeeting them out in the sea.
I will. Oh my god, I will get such a chub over that, because look, Devil May Cry, is great and all. It's that style of combat is something you need to have in your hands, and you need to feel it out, because visually it's quite like homogenized. now. You know, there are so many games that are trying to look and feel like Devil May Cry, and looking at it will only tell you so much. So yeah, I'm with Sai. I think the DMC influences are self-evident. I'm hoping to see some divergence. I'm hoping to see something that is different, something that is perhaps a little bit more innovative, which I think we should be expecting from this team.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think we should be expecting a cut and paste of DMC combat. We should be expecting some serious innovation on Final Fantasy, on the IP, on the genre. I think we should have really, really high expectations of this project. I certainly do. I don't know about you guys.
The one thing I'm still grappling with is if there'll even be summoning. I think there will be. I think whichever icon you have equipped will likely be some degree of summon. I think it makes sense to assume that some sort of gauge or some sort of method of summoning once per fight or some shit like that based on whatever you have equipped is reasonable. Which would definitely be different from Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry, you become a demon, but you don't summon. And if I become Ifrit, I'm okay with that. If I become Garuda, I'm okay with that.
So you're thinking that you'll have a limit break where you literally just like what are they calling it? What Joshua is for Phoenix?
Dominant.
Dominant.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you think like our limit break will be like becoming a dominant?
Yeah, something like that. Instead of Devil Trigger, it's Dreadworm Trigger. There you go.
I could party with that.
I could party with that as well. Even if it's a solo game, I can party with that.
Is it going to be a solo game? I guess that's another big question.
We tackled that already.
Yeah.
I said pawns. Pawns.
Yeah, he said pawns.
Yeah, but do we think it's going to perhaps have some, end game side content co-op elements like 15 did?
Yeah, I won't be surprised. I won't be surprised at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's given what that division has under its belt already. It's almost hard to imagine it doesn't.
Yeah, like end game challenge dungeons or something that are co-op. I think that would be interesting.
I mean, I'm gonna call a spade for a spade. The game's gonna have DLC, and one of them's probably gonna be multiplayer. I feel somewhat confident in that. As much as it's a single player game, I can't. It's this generation.
Yeah,
I'm always gonna think that a game's gonna have DLC or multiplayer or something thrown in, even if there's no real reason to think it. Shit, when the new Tomb Raider game started coming out, I didn't think they would have multiplayer, and then they had fucking deathmatch and shit, and I was just like, okay, fuck it. It just happened.
Why not? Why not?
I just wouldn't be surprised. I just don't expect it to be like live service.
No. I hope not, honestly. No. Because if it is live service, then Yoshida's priorities might be split.
Yeah. So, I wouldn't expect anything to be live servicey. I think just they'll release it, they'll have DLCs for it, it'll end, they'll move on to 17. Not this team in particular, but like the company. We'll move on to 17.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing how it all pans out. But we've probably got, I'm gonna guess Q2 2022. That's my optimistic guess as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Q2. Okay.
Q2 2022.
I'm going to be super, super optimistic, and I'm gonna say Christmas 2021.
That is very optimistic.
That is really optimistic.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm gonna stick to it.
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima has multiplayer now, so you never know.
Oh yeah, it does too.
Yeah, it's a very recent thing. They did a free update for it not too long ago. But the biggest thing I took away was that, given who's in charge of it, this is not a versus 13 situation.
No.
This is not a see you in 10 years announcing it way too early kind of situation.
Yeah.
This is we're making it exclusively for the PS5. We're going to it's going to be a thing. Here you go. we'll see in 2021. The fact that they said they wouldn't talk about it again until 2021 tells me their priorities are probably in the right place. Like, all right, we've shown you, but now for fucking real, we need to get back to work. All right. And then when's 7 Remake 2 coming out is the other question. And how will it coincide with that? How close will it be in relation to 16 release-wise?
You know, maybe Christmas next year is a safer bet for Part 2 of the remake.
Maybe. I don't think there's safe bets at all when it comes to.
No, there's no safe bets with that. No,
there's no safe bets for anything at this point.
No, I'm just really hoping that they do just check the locks on the basement. All right, okay, because you know Nomura's seen that trailer and he's gonna try to get out. He's going to try to take it. He's going to try to get out and get his grubby paws all over it. And he's got work to do, all right?
Yeah, on 7. He said he wants 7 Remake 2 to come out quickly.
He did say that, yeah.
Yeah, he wants it out. He's like, I know people are really excited.
What does quickly mean for Nomura? What does that even mean for him at this point?
It means Melody of Memories and later this year. That's what it means. Yeah, that's what it means to me. Okay, well, gentlemen, I'd say we've beaten this horse. It's still not dead, and that's fine because I want it to be very much alive. So I'll say, is there anything else that we didn't touch upon that you? Somebody tweeted the collaboration thing. I'm so glad. Retweet. There you go. All right.
Yeah. Nice.
I had to retweet it. I was so happy when I was seeing that right now. Please go to my Twitter and please click on my most recent retweet and please feel free to share that because I.
All right. Oh, Stygian, mate.
There you go. That's beautiful. I'm glad I've retweeted that.
My man.
Okay. Is there anything else that we need to touch upon regarding 16 or the PS5 Showcase that we didn't get to touch upon today?
We hit it pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, main points. We're way more excited to get it, like at launch. Final Fantasy XVI is exciting. Fuck J.K. Rowling and Demon Souls. That's about it. Yeah. I think we got that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think we covered the main points. Yeah.
And you too, Sly?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right.
I mean, yeah, like we mentioned the Switch in passing, but that's it. But yeah, we're good. We're good.
When they announce a Switch Pro, we can do a show about that too.
Yeah, there you go.
I've been waiting however many years for that now, so I can have a real console from Nintendo. Anyway. Maybe they can include an Ethernet port, because I was on about that yesterday. That would be really cool if I didn't have to buy an extra Ethernet port.
Yeah.
Please. Man, trying to play Dauntless on Switch.
That is
no good on Wi-Fi.
Oh, you actually have?
Yes, Switch Pro with F-Zero. That's fucked up. Anyway.
So that's it for today's TBG. Fucking Philistines. Fucking ass.
Thank you so much for watching. Do we have any housekeeping or shout outs or anything we have to do?
Yeah, I'll shout out the patrons real quick. SteelSeries isn't an official sponsor of the show, but they just sponsor the channel altogether. So I didn't do any sponsor shout outs at the start. The patrons didn't even know they were signing up for this. They are. That's I never reached out and was like, hey, you guys are sponsoring this now too. And they were just like, yeah, sure. They're just like,
congratulations.
Yeah, there you go. You've inherited this as far as I'm concerned. But thank you to our patrons. Thank you to SteelSeries. Thank you to our fucking Ethys. God damn it. Somebody did it for you yesterday too. It's probably Alice. Yeah. Patrons of Darkness, Cross on Jenova and Kurenai Oni. So we just do these occasionally. Consider these bonuses, on top of any State of the Realms or in place of any State of the Realms on any given week or whatnot. But thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this little chat about Final Fantasy 16, and I'm sure it won't be the last one.
Well, no,
it will not.
No. No.
Just call it.
If you don't make a Final Fantasy 16 show, then
State of the Icon, right? State of the Dominant. That sounds like a fetish thing.
State of what's the name of the nation they mentioned?
There's two nations they mentioned. Yeah.
Dalmec.
Yeah, there's Dalmec and there's one
Dalek.
And there's also the Imperials. There's Dalmec, one other one, and the Imperials. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, State of the Icon. Yeah, State of the Dominant. It sounds like a fetish kind of thing, so maybe not.
Ooh. We could do it too far.
Dominant of the realm.
Yeah, so look forward to announcements on our upcoming Final Fantasy 16/BDSM show. We will be talking about everything ERP and BDSM lifestyle in the Final Fantasy 16 sphere. It's going to be very niche, but I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. We're working hard behind the scenes and
working hard. That's a double entendre.
Yeah, it is.
Will there be a GIMP?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
There will be.
Okay.
Yeah. We will. Yeah. I wish you hadn't said that because I wasn't going to mention him. I was just going to have a GIMP like standing behind me the whole time and just deadpan, never, ever, ever mention it. But
okay.
GIMP's out of the bag now. So there you go.
There we go.
And you're going in the bag.
Yeah. Hopefully. So please look forward to it. Thanks.
Now it's funny because I was going to count that as your outro and then just move on to Sly, but I don't think that's what we're going to do in this case.
Oh my god.
So thank you Ethys for making time. Thank you Sly as well, since this was kind of just like PS5 Showcase happened. I was like, guys, and you're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Ethys, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for extending your lore knowledge and dissection and opinion on what we've experienced thus far. The 4 minutes that we just extrapolated for an hour and a half. So
yeah, you're very welcome.
Where can they expect to find more content like that for both Final Fantasy 14 and 16?
Oh my goodness. You can expect to find more content for Final Fantasy 16 lore on youtube.com/EthysAsher, which is obviously where the 14 stuff is. Lots of 14 lore content there. I'm doing a series at the moment going through all the tales from the Calamity, tales from the Shadows, and sort of extrapolating, talking about the lore in those. So check that out. You can catch me on twitch.tv/EthysAsher. I stream several days a week, usually during the daytime in Europe. Twitter.com/EthysAsher. You guys know. You guys know where to find me. So, find me there, please. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And Sly, I believe, has some places as well.
Yes, I have places. Hi, I'm Sly. I'm here.
All right.
You can find me on twitch.tv/Sly, aka Gray Fox, Twitter @Sly the Fox. Doing pretty much all the things. Again, September, I really underestimated September. I fucked up. That's okay. I also do Station WSLY every Saturday night, and seeing that, it is early and we're about to wrap up, I will be starting Station WSLY soon. I also do Station WSLY first Saturdays, and the next first Saturday will be October 3rd, and that will be a costume party on Behemoth at the FC House. So, but yeah, either way, I just play a lot of fucking games. So continue to look forward to that. Hi. And Mike, where can they find you and what are you doing?
You can find me at Mr. Abby127 on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, doing games as well, because I've actually been playing more 14 in the past 5 weeks than I think I've played in the last 5 months. I farmed 99 SOS Extremes. Now I've got all those totems, and now I have to get all the rest of the mounts, and that's going to be fun. Not to mention Bajja's coming up. There are some other games I've been meaning to get to. Dauntless has an update right now. I actually bought DJ Max Respect V because I haven't played a DJ Max since Technica Machine back in New Jersey. And
oh wow,
Burn was playing it last night after State of the Realm on Ready Check Radio. So I was like, fuck, now I have to buy this and play it again. I have to. I need the music games in my life. And Star Renegade, I still need to make time for, but I'm playing a lot of Avengers, and they just recently had their 1.3 update. So
Star Renegade's so fucking good.
Yeah, it looks really good. I am playing it. Not to mention PlayStation 5, Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition, Demon Souls. It's gonna be busy in November.
Baldur's Gate 3 at the end of the month.
Yes.
The Pulse album is also at the end of the month, so I'm gonna. Yeah.
We underestimated fucking September. God damn it.
Yeah, we've been busy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, sort of. Not me so much until this last week, but yeah, we've been busy. So that's what I'm going to be up to. And but for now, I'm hungry, so we're going to go into a short post show, and then I'll let both of you go live your lives. You probably sleep, and you WSLY.
Yeah.
Sounds
Hell
like a plan.
yeah.
With that, thank you
do it.
everyone for joining us. Sly has been working on State of the Realms, some topics. I also have one that I want to throw his way as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So
good community episodes, because we I mean, while we did some of those like during the summer with the other content creators, like I really want to shout out and throw some love to the community keeping content going on in the game. So
yeah,
please look forward to those.
Hi. There you go.
Hi.
That's your thing. But anyway, like I said, short post show, and then we'll be off for the day. So thank you everyone for tuning in on Twitch. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for tuning in as well. We will see you next time there's a TBG or on Stay the Realm. Thanks for watching, and until then, take care.
Bye-bye.
Take care.